anytime I see something, whether it's social media or it's a 24-hour news show or whatever else, it's how am I being manipulated? How is this person want to manipulate me? How does this politician, how does this pundit, how does this company, how are they trying to manipulate me using these tools that they have? Maybe that's a cynical way to go into it, but I think you have to do that these days. Otherwise, you're going to spend your whole life getting manipulated.
Yeah, you create. It's like the power of now, where you're like creating the third party that's in your head that's just observing passively kind of what's going on. And if you don't have that, some people would call it introspect. If you don't have that perspective, then you're not thinking consciously that this could be a marketing campaign. Could be influence, and you just become a victim. And what I've seen from the guys who have kind of gone down the rabbit hole in this toxicity on social media is they don't realize, like, because we've been operating in this space for a while, we understand kind of what works, what doesn't work, and what is going to destroy you emotionally or just mentally, exhaust you. So we know when to go in, we know what battles to choose, and we also know when to retreat and just be like, this isn't worth my time. A lot of new people to social media, they get in it, and because they have an addictive personality, they don't understand the kind of psychology of it. They haven't got that awareness that your daughter has from a very young age. They're just victims. And then, whether it's them looking at their phone and then realizing 3 hours just passed and like, whoa, what happened to the time?
Yeah.
Or 10 years down the road, they're working at the same job they don't want to be working in the same circumstance, not evolving in life. There is going to be a detriment to that, long-term especially.
It's so tough. It's so tough. And, we were thinking about it earlier. Imagine if we had, personalities, for lack of a better term, that we could have followed back in 1985, back in 1990, where we could follow them on social media. Someone who was a SEAL, someone who was SF operator, let's say Vietnam guys, let's say 1983. I didn't know anyone personally that was a SEAL or anyone that was SF. I would have loved that, but they were up here.
Yeah.
So I never got to realize that they are people too. They were this amazing group of people that did these things in Vietnam, where I've seen some videos. I've seen a paragraph here or there about them, and that's what I want to do. But what if we had those guys all on social media and all out of Vietnam and all sharing their post-Vietnam journey? And what if you chose to follow the ones that weren't quite so healthy and they're developing you in those formative years, but you didn't know who to follow. You just knew that, hey, this guy was in Vietnam, he's an SF guy, and so is this guy, and they're the two you follow, but they are the ones maybe who aren't the ones that are the most healthy for you at that time in your life. So you have to really be careful about where you invest this time and who you follow essentially on social media. So even people that I probably agree with most everything that they say, but I don't really like the way they say it. It's a little toxic. I do not follow them.
Yes.
That is no. I follow people to support them, to thank them because they're giving something of value to me in my life. But you can easily, especially today, follow people that are not a positive influence on you. That's why I love when we grew up. We just knew that there were these things called SEALs, and there were these guys, SF guys, and there were these teams in Vietnam, and they're working with these Montagnard tribes people, and then you had these Vietnam era Marine snipers, and they were using these really cool rifles that look kind of like what I see at the sporting goods store here, but look at him, he's on camoed up, and he's going out with his spotter for like 4 or 5 days, and they're lying in wait for this one general to walk out in the woods or whatever it is. That was awesome. And that was positive, I think. But today, you're not using your imagination there. You're not, I don't know, it's just it can be very toxic. It can have a negative impact on your life. And you're kind of, especially in those formative years, not really sure who you should follow because there's so many out there. I don't know. It's just tough.
Well, there's so many, I mean, like you said, these minds are so influential and they want to follow, they want to belong. And for the first time, you have access to these personalities that, you played on video games. And when I came out, a lot of it was super positive because it was like, oh, this guy's a Green Beret. And I got like, hey, you're a stolen valor because this kid can't be a Green Beret. And people were like, well, he's got pictures. And it's like, who takes those pictures? And I'm like, I'm like, I remember constantly like debating with people because I'm trying to let them know that I have a background and experience, but be balanced. You don't want to be egotistical about it. But I remember one time somebody said, this guy can't be special forces because he's got so many pictures of himself. And I thought about that for a second and I went, wait a minute. I was like, all the pictures that I have are pictures of me that somebody else took.
Right. You're not selfie.
There wasn't a selfie. It didn't even exist.
Paris Hilton hadn't invented it yet.
Yeah, it hadn't been invented yet. And I'm like, they're like, well, why do you got so many pictures of you? I was like, because I had guys on my detachment who carried cameras, mostly for SSE, for sensitive site exploitation, which I did as an SOP. And they took pictures when there was an opportunity. And thank God I became that guy, I think, at the end of my career because I wanted to capture moments. But most of my picture collection wasn't of other guys. It was like the environment. It was like, oh, look at these Afghan women who are carrying these baskets on their head. This is really interesting. It's culture. It's whatever it is. And so when I come out and there's pictures of me and they're not selfies, people immediately start making assumptions. And assumptions can be problematic, but it was a very positive experience because a lot of people were like, thank you for putting out that thing about mental health or about mindset. And all these things I was saying weren't really positioned for me monetizing. They were actually just making me feel good about getting things that were in my head over decades and actually talking out loud. So that value proposition came naturally, but kind of unnaturally. It wasn't something that I had planned for. So evolving through this now, because a lot of businesses, including my own, are positioned on social, then it's fighting for markets. And then what I think is when I see people commenting something poorly, it's a tactic. And what I would say to somebody like you gave the advice, I would say if you follow somebody and their tactics are to be toxic, please be careful. Because if you get caught up in that because you're like, yeah, screw those guys, you're getting involved in something that is limited in context. You probably don't have all the answers. And if you're wasting your time by talking crap on social media, that time could be allocated in doing something positive for yourself. So my rules of thumb, I don't follow anybody who's negative. I only do things on social that are positive, that give back, that help people, that benefit others. And I never will comment my discourse or my discontent for something that I don't agree with. Why? Because in the echo chamber that is social media, it does no good. It does no good. So please, if you're listening to this, please be aware of that.